Welcome everyone. Have you ever thought, man, I wish Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon fucked and I didn't even have to turn on a furry mod? Well, boy howdy, do I got the game for you today. Banners of Ruin was developed by unBEARable and published by Goblins Publishing and Maple Whispering in July of 2021 for Steam and Nintendo Switch. It is a roguelite deck builder with an emphasis on controlling a party of characters, spacing of pieces on the board, and dying. A lot of dying. Banners technically has a story, but as it is with most roguelites, the story within is mostly a framing device to tell you why the theming is what it is. The story of Slay the Spire is, you're in a tower, fight your way to the heart and try to kill it. The story of Banners of Ruin is, you're in a capital, fight your way to the highest ranking official you can find, and try to kill them. The rest, as engaging or full of effort as they may be, is mostly there for world building and set dressing. Also, get ready for a lot of comparisons to Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon, but more so Slay the Spire during this video, because it seems to have been the most influential of Banners of Ruin. To move on to the gameplay, it can be cut into 3 distinct segments, these being combat, event, and downtime. We'll go backwards through these so as to get more complicated as we go along. Downtime is what I'm referring to as basically any time you're not in an event or combat. This is when you can get ready for the other 2 gameplay segments, as well as choose where to go from here. This is a screen with 3 cards you can choose between, akin to Slay the Spire's map screen, except Banner's cards can linger. During this segment, you can also go into your team's status, change their starting position in combat, their gear if you have other pieces of gear on you, and deal with level ups as necessary. Events are, as you'd imagine, any cards that you can interact with that are not inherently combat in their nature. These can be a lot of things in Banners of Ruin. You can come across a fish merchant and choose between buying a fish or his cleaver, you can find blood cultists and choose to join or fight them, and you can find some people hauling various vapors that you can then ask them to skim some of the top for you. Combat is the game's meat and potatoes. It is, on the baseline, like what you'd expect if you've played a roguelite deck builder. You get a hand of cards, your character has a certain amount of energy per turn, and each card has an energy cost you must pay. What sets Banners of Ruin apart is 2 things. One lesser and one bigger addition to the roguelite deck builder formula. The lesser addition is the presence of species-specific abilities, which can be things like placing traps on the battlefield, taking out a handful of shivs, or copying a teammate's abilities. This isn't that extra, I can easily see this being a shared idea between the games Slay the Spire spawned. What really sets Banners apart in my opinion is, well, the presence of a battlefield. As you can see, we're only a couple of steps removed from being Mega Man Battle Network up in this bitch. One of the means Banners takes at their Darkest Dungeon instead is how much it takes spacing, where both you and your opponent are in relation to each other, or just in general on the battlefield, that is, into account. Cards and attacks may have modifiers that make them attack ranks or rows, or may move an enemy or ally, maybe a modifier that makes the card have different effects based on where you or the opponent are standing. Another thing that sets Banners of Ruin apart, or at least I hadn't seen it in other games in this genre, is the way the more RPG-ish aspects are integrated. Your armor decides your innate defenses, but also your energy points. So while heavy plate armor may give you a lot of block at the end of your turn, you also have to contend with having 2 less energy, which, depending on your build and where you are in the run, may mean that that character is just stranded standing there like a very sturdy looking obelisk, while the others fight around them. Conversely, light armor may give you an extra point of energy, but have fun face taking that 30 damage attack from one guy while your health is 45. Weapons also play a role, as they give you additional attack cards with their own effects that only their wielder and the team wolf, if one is present, may use. For clarity's sake, wielders pay the card's regular price, wolves pay that and a unique charge. Weapon cards mostly fall into the category of fulfilling build-specific things. We start with the most well-rounded getup, around shield that can give one character big defenses or in the early game or 2 characters okay ones, next that gives the user inspiration, meaning that their next attack deals additional damage, and a glaive, if memory serves, that deals equal damage to everyone in a rank. This will last you a while, but you might want to get more specific. Say you're playing as a mouse. Mouse's special ability is gaining as much inspiration as many attacks as they land in the turn the special is popped. As a mouse, you'll probably get better use out of a blade that deals 1 times 12 damage than the one that deals 12 damage outright, at least assuming that the latter doesn't have anything else going for it, which it almost certainly will. Either way, if you go real hard into committing to a special build with a mouse, the former weapon would be optimal since you'd practically be guaranteeing the mouse can nuke someone from orbit every second turn or so, assuming you don't clutter your deck. But that's a bit too much insider baseball on that, point being that if you try hard enough, you can theoretically make anything work. Moving through the battlefield can be done through 2 ways willingly, as well as a 3rd way unwillingly. The willing ways are adjusting your team composition before taking combat cards, which is the most consistent way of affecting your placement on the battlefield, as well as using card effects while in combat. These latter will more than likely cost you some unique charges as well though, so they should only be used when it is critical your character moves, you have the points to spare, or don't care about the character's unique ability and don't have any other cards that can make better use of the charges. Alongside these, you can also be moved by force, as some enemy attacks move whomever they land on. Not to despair though, granted that you can get the right weapons, you can do the same to the enemy. Well, okay, but I keep talking about these unique charges, so what are they? They're a secondary type of payment for cards, as well as being the sole way to pay for unique abilities that are refreshed on a per combat basis as opposed to a per turn one like energy. Fine, but why did I even open saying this game is a mixture of Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon if the only thing it has in common with the latter is that there's more than one character and that spacing matters? The aesthetic isn't similar, the game isn't grimdark overall, there's no corpses for the players to turn off en masse in the options menu because it only worsens the experience, so what gives? Well, the major thing Banners shares with Darkest Dungeon, as the focus on team-based combat with the mind for character location, is that it is balls hard. You won't have to worry about killing your darlings, they'll be dead by the time you get there, even if that means the run is over. And on top of this, that while the default team composition is 2 people with potentially more added along the way, the game doesn't feel balanced for such. In fact, it feels weirdly balanced, but this makes the game unreasonably difficult at times way, not the balance in the game is absolutely fucked sort of way. I say this because experience gained from encounters feels balanced towards using a single character, which is an option provided by the game if you want to undertake it, as all experience not specifically given to a single character through events is split between each party member, but the encounters themselves feel balanced towards having 2 people on your team at least. This makes for a disconnect where either you play with one character and get them leveled up at a reasonable pace while surviving each encounter by the skin of your teeth, or you play with a team of 2 where you'd need to partake in each fight which will soon land you back at most, surviving by the skin of your teeth. But wait, there's more! If you weren't getting your shit pushed in hard enough through the game regularly, once you make it to the keep, you unlock hunters, additional elite encounters that will give you unique weapons if you defeat them, emphasis on the if. But that's not all. Call now, and we'll throw in modifiers, additional rule sets that do not in any way benefit you in the long run, and in fact are just there to make your experience more painful. Like what if you took twice as much bleed damage but also innately applied bleed to everyone, which turns out is actually a real cutting off the nose despite the faceplay, unless you can get a blood cultist build online out of the starting gate. Another thing that bugs me specifically is the way bleed and poison are implemented, to be honest. Bleed is a damage over time that once applied ticks down 1 per turn, while poison is a damage over time that ticks up 1 per turn. Now this may make sense since bleeding may stop and poison spreads through the nervous system, but it also doesn't, because you could just as easily argue that we're not giving each other paper cuts, and that if someone is exposed to poison over a long time they grow to resist it. Now this is of course actually once again a balancing decision, but still a kinda befuddling one. Bleed, while more common than poison overall, is largely only present for one species as a consistent gimmick, while poison is something you have to actually work for in most cases even with those characters. And to touch on the ugly of the game's balancing as well, the difficulty of regular combat means that elite and boss encounters have to be more difficult, but this leads to the current state, where fighting elite combats during the entire first chapter is practically a death sentence, and if you get Spittle as the chapter 1 boss, the run is dead some 95% of the time. To move into the presentation, obviously there's the elephant in the room of the characters being anthropomorphic animals. Now, if this isn't your first rodeo on the channel and still haven't figured it out, I have no problem with this. Banners of Ruin isn't even the usual mainstream furry art style, it's much more like tried and tested fantasy photorealism, mainly because that's exactly what it is. It's an interesting effort that sets it apart from your usual furry bait, at least in part because I imagine being furry bait wasn't the intention, though I could be wrong on that. The sounds though, I mean, they're not bad by any means, but they're entirely unremarkable. It's what you'd expect out of a setting of this sort. And overall, I know that things kinda turned sour with what I've been pointing out near the end, but I liked Banners of Ruin. I truly mean that. I didn't get 24 hours of playtime at the dawn of the 3rd day, I owned it for no reason. The game has its ups and downs, and it's down to you whether the concept of a horror Slay the Spire with multiple player characters and a stage to move around on is enough for you to put up with its execution being far from perfect. For me, but the times when you can get a run that shuts down the problem bosses and you finally get to trade blows with the endgame bosses are worth it. Alright, never mind, game sucks, back it up.